Hi there, this is Jean Roman with For Dragonflies and Me. Thanks so much for joining me at this week's podcast. As always, I'm super excited to be here sharing gardening, cooking, organizational tips and tricks, discussions on healthy lifestyles, and of course, having conversations with incredible entrepreneurs. Each week, I love to start out with how I met my guest, and of course, today is no different. Some of you may remember my premier podcast guest, Mr. Tim Travis, owner of Goldner Walsh Garden and Home. Well, Tim was having a wonderfully quaint artist market last December in one of his event greenhouses and invited me to attend. Well, that was an easy sell. Artist plus market plus food plus shopping. Well, you get the picture. The market was showcasing several wonderful local artisans, which was my cup of tea. I love markets, I love artisan handcrafted products, and I love to meet new people, especially entrepreneurs. I admit, I also went looking for potential podcast guests, and I was not disappointed. I met this wonderfully talented young woman who awed me with her beautifully crafted pottery. And I'm a sucker for pottery. I have always loved the uniqueness of each piece. And again, as I've mentioned in the past, I love one of a kind anything. And that is where I met today's guest. Please let me introduce Karleigh Thompson, owner and artist of Moon Ceramics. Welcome, Karleigh.
Hi, Jean and Dragonfly friends. Thank you for having me on your podcast today. I'm super excited to be a guest and share my story with you.
Well, after talking to you and kind of getting your background, I think what you have to share today with my listeners is really going to touch a lot of people's hearts. And of course, I'm super excited to chat with you about how you developed your business model and how you are turning your gift, which is very, very, you do a great job, Karleigh, your gift and your passion into a business. So can you tell my listeners how you started and what were the driving factors to get you where you're at?
Yeah, I can. So how it all started was probably back when I was about 10. Art has always been an essential part of my life. I come from a very, very creative and artistic family. Both of my parents are talented artists. Now they mostly create stuff just for themselves. They don't sell like I do. My parents were divorced when I was very young, but they both were very encouraging to my artistic side. We always would do different projects together and
Aw,
everything.
that's nice.
My my grandmother on my dad's side, her name is Pavan. She's a very talented artist. She's a painter. She also does some glass artwork and garden art, stuff like that. She specifically paints like portraits and oil paintings, and she shows her artwork regularly in galleries in the city that she lives in, which is Marine City in Port Huron. And she has been doing that for years now since she retired. I find that very impressive because I really struggled kind of immersing myself in the gallery scene, and she just does it and sells regularly, and it's just so impressive to me.
Oh,
Uh,
that's awesome.
yeah, so she is one of the people, like the pillars of my creative beginning. When I was about 10 years old, she taught me how to oil paint in her kitchen. Um, and I just, looking back now, I just think it's incredible to trust a 10-year-old with oil paints and, have the expectations that they can, do the same things. And it just opened up a whole new world for me. I've never been a great oil painter. I'll say that right now. But
That's okay. You are a great potter.
yeah, but it really kind of helps get the ball rolling, like in that direction of, oh yeah, I really like doing this and I'm gonna keep doing it. And it's funny because my mom actually still has that still life that I painted, and it's like
Oh,
wine glasses and a wine bottle and candles. She has it hanging in her house. And every
aw.
time I see it, for years I was like, oh God, when are you gonna take that down? And I actually really enjoy seeing it now because it kind of gives you a little reminder, where you started, and it's never gonna be perfect in the beginning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's kind of interesting as I was looking through our notes and everything. My grandparents raised me, and so my mom was there, but my grandmother and my mom used to spend a lot of time in the kitchen and cooking, and that was where my love of cooking was stimulated. And so I totally get what you're saying. Those motivating factors, those influential people in our lives to help us get those stepping stones, that's awesome. But yeah, keep on.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it started. I always was doing art projects and crafts and all that. And it really even more evolved in high school. And actually just recently I was trying to clean up my studio for the new year, and I rediscovered an old random giant plastic bag of artwork that I had did in high school. And it was all for an AP art class that I actually didn't earn credit for, which back then I was like just devastated, but I think it's really funny now. Because you put a whole, semester into making artwork, and as a high schooler, I think I was 16, 17.
Okay.
And for AP art classes, you have to mail everything out to them, and then they decide whether or not you receive college credit for doing that class.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's an advanced placement class. Anyway, it was just kind of cool to look back through all my old artwork and see where it all started, and kind of look at it from a different perspective of like, God, that was 2010 I graduated, and looking back. Yeah, anyway, I was really excited just to kind of go through all of that again and look at it. And I kind of was like trying to get my family to look at it too, like, hey, look at what I used to make. It's just
that's awesome.
Yeah, and so in high school I took tons and tons of art classes, as many as they would let me. I remember my senior year, they ended up canceling my mandatory gym class.
Okay.
So I actually went and talked to the principal, and I convinced them to make an exception for me and allow me to skip gym and then replace it with more art classes.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing. I would have taken art class over gym too.
Yeah. And by the end of the high school, like you're a senior, like I just want to do what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
That's where I was at. I also had two like amazing art teachers in high school, Mrs. Groff and Mr. Putty. They probably have no clue that they were really the ones that helped me see the value in myself as an artist, and really encouraged me to kind of consider that path and go down that path. Because I remember at 16, 17 trying to figure out where I wanted to go to college, and so they helped me kind of pick and choose the different schools and what was available in Michigan and what art classes there were, and art college, degrees, where to go.
Yeah.
But before I even did all of that, both junior and senior year of high school, I ended up taking about, I think, 4 semesters of college courses at the high school. It was a program taught by my art teachers through Kendall College of Art and Design. So every day after school, I think it was almost every day after school or 4 days a week, I stayed late and I did more courses. And by the time I graduated, I ended up with an entire semester of college credits.
Wow.
Went to college. So that really kind of helped push me in that direction too.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's a really big accomplishment, Karleigh. Not everybody can say that. But as you're talking about high school and high school art, and I loved art in high school too. And I remember learning pointillism. I'm sure you know what that is. And I had done this, taken one of the, oh gosh, Ansel Adams, he's the photographer, black and white photographer. And there was this one photograph that I just loved, and I did that in pointillism. But the other thing I was thinking of too is during one of the I think it was my senior year, and we had to do a sculpting thing, and I did my rendition of the Thinker. Yeah, the thing for so long, and I was like so super proud of it. And now it's like I think back, I'm like, I wondered if that was any good. But anyway,
you end up keeping it?
I did not keep it. No, I don't. That got pitched probably when I in my early part of my first marriage. But yeah, I was not going to college for art. But anyway, so then you earned all these credits. So what's next?
So after that, I decided I was going to go to CCS, which is the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. And I was there my entire college career. And it's an experience that was like no other. It was very just like a different world when you're going to a specific school like that, that's all art classes, and just the whole school revolves around art. It's just an incredible experience. And I know going to like a different university, I would have never been immersed into that community.
Mhm.
So I am grateful now that I went to that school. I also had a very fortunate experience where after 2012, about my sophomore year, I was feeling pretty burnt out, and I knew like I needed to do something different. I was sick in the beginning of the year. I ended up getting mono, and I was out for God, like a month or two. And
Mhm.
coming back, I just knew like I wanted to do something different. And I ended up studying abroad. And on a whim in the fall, I was like, I'm just gonna look and see what the options are. And I think I went to like a little talk about it, and I picked Ireland, and I end up going to a tiny, tiny remote art school in the middle of the Irish countryside.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
Yeah, and that was also a life-changing experience. Still to this day, one of the best decisions I ever made, and for myself and for in artists and just being a young adult individual trying to find myself. It
Mhm.
was such a transformative experience in a good,
Oh,
in a
I
good
can imagine. I'm a mom of six, as most of my listeners know. But my second youngest, Evan, the school that he was attending at that time, their fifth grade had a Spanish immersion program. Evan was
way.
not in that program. However, they did an annual trip to Madrid, Spain, and the trip was open to all the students in the school, as well as obviously the Spanish immersion class kids. And I uh, thought this is going to be a great opportunity for him. And so I jumped on the committee and did the sponsorship things because that's what I did at my job. And so I knew I could help. And so it only ended up costing the kids like $800 to go for 3 weeks.
Wow.
I know. And so Evan, it was funny because it was the trip was happening when we go to Florida for spring break. And, a fifth grader, okay, he's thinking, I don't want to go to Spain. I don't want to miss Florida. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I was like, sweetheart, we go to Florida every year. Nothing's changing.
Yeah.
I said, this is potentially a once in a lifetime, opportunity. And so when he went, he's all about food. He's a lineman and he's a big boy. But he came back, and then the child that he stayed with, they came to our home for 3 weeks. And you know what? He is a freshman in high school now, and he still talks about that trip and how glad he was that I made him go and come to Florida.
Yeah.
But not everybody gets that opportunity, Karleigh. And the fact that you were able to, oh my gosh, immerse yourself in your passion. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I went from, living in the hustle and bustle of Detroit, down like midtown Detroit, to going to the countryside where every tiny road is just 2 lanes, and
Yeah.
I remember this, that there's more sheep in the town that I lived in than there were people.
So those photos that we see of the sheep herders walking down the road
Yeah.
over the hills, that's for real.
Yeah, that's where I lived. And God, it's like something out of a fairy tale book. It was just beautiful. And the school was tiny. It was part in a castle. And
Oh my gosh.
I think there was about like 20 or 25 of us students, and all of us were students from the United States too, which was cool, from all different
Yeah.
states. And I made lifelong friends and
Aw.
just learned so much as an artist and kind of what I want to do. And at that time, I was doing more painting and more ink drawings, and I started to dabble in sculpture too a little bit, and
Okay.
being my
Okay.
so
Did you create a thinker of your own?
many of the things that I created end up going away too. They end up in the trash, or that's how artists work. You make stuff and then you're like, oh, I don't like this, and you move on, but you learn from it. So yeah.
So what came after Ireland?
Oh, so after Ireland, I came back to Detroit for my senior year of college, and that was a lot. It was just a lot to kind of make a collection of work and figure out, it's like the ending of 4 years and how it all gathers together. So I spent a lot of time drawing and painting and making work and working on my own. And in college too, this is funny. They wouldn't let me take ceramics because my major was in fine art, and at CCS at that time they were two separate majors.
Oh.
So I actually ended up meeting with like 3 different faculty staff, and I was like, how can I take the classes I want to take? So I ended up doing a minor in ceramics so that I could take those classes too. And it's funny because that's, you know,
Look
God,
where
like,
you're at now.
yeah, 10 years later, that's what I'm doing, is not necessarily painting, but I'm doing ceramics. And now my work is kind of evolving back into sculpture. That's kind of where it's heading. So it's like a full circle of life.
Okay, well, that's awesome. That is so awesome. So, and then, so during that time, you came back, and how did you wrap up your final year?
Yeah, so I at the end of the year, all of the seniors had to do like a exhibition. And I think I did 2 of them, and it was like showing your work in a gallery, and some of us were paired with other students and all that. And I had like this idea in my head that I was gonna sell my work then. Like I'd spent 4 years learning how to be an artist, and I'm gonna show in some galleries, and that will kind of like help set me off which direction I want to go. And I tried to do the gallery thing, and I didn't sell a single piece
Oh,
of artwork.
oh,
And it kind of took me down a little bit, and I decided just to not go that route, not selling galleries. And I was feeling a little burnt out, a little lost. I graduated, and I just kind of like took a break from art, and I ended up moving back home to my parents. So, out of college, I think most people in my situation are like, oh man, now I got to go back home. This isn't
mm,
really really what I wanted to do, but it was the right thing to do.
okay.
Um, and at that time, I had my own apartment in downtown Detroit by Eastern Market. It was awesome, like view. Had a view of the Canadian skyline
Okay.
and Ford Field in my apartment, so it was just like picturesque. It was so pretty. But I lived in a very old building, and the building had not only cockroaches, of course,
Oh.
because lived in Detroit, everything has cockroaches, and then I had bed bugs too, which was devastating. And
Oh boy.
my mom was like, you can't bring your mattress home. So naturally, we got rid of it. I ended up donating it to a senior in the apartment building that didn't have a mattress, and she was sleeping on the
Oh,
floor.
something
So
was
it
better
went
than
to a good
nothing.
home. And it was only like a year or two old mattress that I saved up and bought. So I was like pretty sad about it. Anyway, I ended up sleeping on my parents' floor for like 6 months before I broke down and bought a new mattress. And around that time, like 6 months after graduating, I, through a family member, got an interview for doing activities at a senior retirement community that was about a mile from my parents' house. And at the time, I had no experience in that, didn't know what to do, but I really struggled with trying to find a job and what I wanted to do after school. So that's where I ended up. So I was there for about almost 6 years. I worked in
Wow.
activities, and it was a life-changing experience just working in that field and working in healthcare. And about the last year and a half, I worked specifically in memory care. So it really taught me some valuable lessons of just how to be a compassionate, caring human, and to understand like that part of life and the end of life. And it was, I think, it's a lesson that I needed to learn, especially,
Mhm.
just through that time period. And I knew too at the end, like it was time, and I got to move out of my parents' house during those 6 years, which was awesome. I also got engaged,
Aw.
and I had my daughter, who is now 4. Her name's Elara.
Aw.
It was just a good evolution into my artistic, life, like going through those couple years working in a different field that I never saw myself in ever. I'm actually very, very grateful that I did do it, and I stayed with it for a while.
Well, that's great. And we all have those moments where it's like, what next, right? And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
the ebb and flow of life. But you know, that is an incredible journey that you had. And now I guess, you know, let's move on to the next topic of our conversation. And are you still working a day job, or is Moon Ceramics your full-time job now? And how do you balance your family responsibilities with what your all the needs of your very blossoming company?
That's a lot to cover. Okay, so I don't have a day job anymore.
Yay.
And Moon Ceramics is now my full-time job, and in side by side with being a full-time mom too.
Yes.
We all know that's probably one of the hardest jobs that we'll do in our life.
Yes, ma'am.
Being a
Done it
mom
six
is,
times, still doing it.
yeah, it doesn't end, right? It just is. And I only have a 4-year-old, but man, these last 4 years have also been challenging just in that aspect. So yeah, I have my full-time, job as being my business and an artist, and then I also care for my daughter full-time. Um, and I officially started Moon Ceramics in 2019. That's when I got my LLC, tax ID, did all the official,
Oh yeah.
business stuff. And at that time, I really didn't spend a lot of my effort and time creating yet. I was still working at the senior retirement community and commuting, which was a nightmare.
Mm.
We moved to Redford, and it was about an hour commute each way with my daughter. So towards the end of that job, I was driving an hour, about 45 minutes with a 2-year-old in the car each way. And it was just
Fun.
getting really rough towards the end there.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really hard. So about 2020, we, had the pandemic, went through the pandemic, and around July of 2020 is when I decided, oh man, something's got to change. I can't keep doing this. The healthcare, it was just like super stressful with COVID. And I'm sure a lot of people know, especially being in healthcare, just working with seniors and the elderly during COVID before the vaccines came out. It was really scary.
Yeah.
uh, just a lot to be protective, and a lot of extra care put in and all that. So I just knew, like, I gotta do something different. This has gotta change. I don't want to be spending 2 hours a day commuting in the car with my kid, where I could be at home spending time with her. And I
Hmm.
remember,
Hmm.
like, for years I would get home like 6:30, and then I wouldn't make dinner until, or eat dinner until 7:30, and that's just
Yeah.
for us. And so July is when I put my resignation in, and other factors at that time too kind of came into play. My mom was watching my daughter at the time, and she needed to take a break from being our full-time childcare for her own medical problems. And so it just was an easy decision. I was like, all right, these are all the signs, it's time. Put my
Yep.
resignation in, and I was like, I'm gonna take some time, be a mom, and then I'm gonna work on my business and figure this out. I have no clue what I'm doing. And
Aw.
I'm gonna, you're like starting from scratch. You
Yeah.
put all your effort into one career and then kind of switch it up one day. It was like starting over
Yeah,
for
no,
me.
I totally get it. I think a lot of my listeners know, and I think I mentioned to you, I was divorced split up with my husband of 25 years and father of all six of my children. And in 2014, divorced in 2015. And when we split up, I had the two youngest and went to school, back to school full time to finish my bachelor's degree. And finished my batch then and finished that in 2019. I lost my fiance at the time in a sudden accident, and it was a trying time, right? And we all
Yeah.
have those moments in our life. And just recently, December 1st of 2022, I quit my full-time job too. And it's a scary thing. And I had a few things going where I was able to do that financially, that maybe not everybody has, but I felt very fortunate. But it is scary. And it's like, there's still that burden. It's like, oh my goodness, I got to make this work. I have got to make this work.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've given myself a year to get everything going. And this podcast is part of it. And so, and that's why I've really wanted to reach out to entrepreneurs that are in every stage, has the day job and working on the business, have just recently left day job and focusing on business, and where have done it and now are successful. And so I really appreciate, you sharing your story with my listeners, because I really feel you're going to be able to touch somebody's heart. But, now on to the balancing act, right, Karleigh?
Yeah. I hope so. I hope that I can help somebody and they just know that not everybody has an easy path in the beginning. And most of us have a lot of, ups and downs and a rocky, journey to go through before we find the new path that we're supposed to be on. And leaving my day job was not an easy decision.
No.
And I had many conversations with my partner about it, and just making sure that we had expectations of how our life is going to change, and especially more so financially.
Mm-hmm.
And we just knew, like, it's going to be years before my company is really profitable.
Yeah.
And that we're going to have to cut back on stuff and just really understand our expectations for what our life is going to look like for the next couple of years. And I think that really helped us get through it too, knowing that we're not going to take lots of lavish vacations. We're not going to buy new vehicles. Like this, my business kind of became the priority, and being able to have a spouse that provides for us during that time too was also helpful. I had another partner, I had somebody else to kind of help me through it too, which was so valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
And I did take a little bit of time just to kind of spend time with my daughter, because at my old job, I went back to work pretty quickly after having her. So during her, youngest years, I was working full time, and I missed that. And so I was really happy to have like the last 2 years with her at home, being present, being a mom, taking her to play dates, and
Aww.
then, working in the evenings and during nap time, stuff like that. And I also include her. She's always making pottery with me all the time.
Oh, that's
She's
awesome.
making
That
stuff,
kind
which
of
is
goes
really
back to your
fun too.
grandma.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, to have her, with me, and we're making stuff. And there's many times she's just come along with me to a show that I'm doing, an art show, craft show, helping me set up. And it's just been great having her there with me and including her, and not having to put her in daycare. And it's just like daycare too is absurdly expensive too.
Oh
So
my
I'm just
gosh, I know.
glad that I could do that with her. And now she's started preschool. This is our first year in preschool. So this year, like in the fall, it was like go time. I was like, I got all this time to myself. My company is just gonna explode over 2023. Like that's my plan at least.
Aw, that's great.
Yeah, it's never been easy or perfect running a company, especially like raising a toddler and trying to balance it all. It's a learning experience, try to figure out how to spend time with family and spend time with your company. And especially for us that work from home, I feel like that's an extra challenge. We don't like leave the house and go to an office or wherever to work. We're at home. So that's also setting boundaries with our family and letting them know like this is work time. That's something I've just learned and evolved into over these last couple of years of how to run my company, how to set time and plan everything out. I really try to get better organized. For me, that was just a big struggle, like how to organize myself, my family, my business, and like keep on track with timelines. So that's a good process to follow. And some practices that I use for myself and for my business and to balance family and work is I make a schedule. And I'll be honest, I don't always follow it.
Yeah,
But
well,
I
as long as
think just writing it,
you're starting there, so that's a good thing.
yeah, just writing it down sometimes helps. And got a bunch of different things. I use apps. I have a digital planner. I use an iPad. where I digital plan. I also use tons of old school paper planners, journals.
I
I'm a
have
book
two.
person.
Oh, I have two of them right in front of me right now. So I get it. I love
Yeah,
my
so
paper.
I feel like you got to find what works for you and what works for your organization, and what will help keep you on track, and whatever that is, stick with it. And I tend to do a bunch of different things, but that helps me. Um, Also, I think it's important to be present when you're in family time,
Mhm.
and be present when you're in working time, business hours. You have to put the phone down and spend that time with your family when you're together. It's so important.
Yeah.
And especially for little ones, if you have, little kids, any kids in your life, give your 100% attention to them when, even if you give them 15 minutes, that 15 minutes is going to be more genuine and just enriching to your kids or whoever you're spending time with than it would be if you're on your phone or reading or checking emails. And I'm totally victim of this. I do it all the time. Checking my phone, make sure do I have any orders, what new orders do I have,
Oh yeah.
what, people sending you messages on all the social medias. You just have to set boundaries and set times. And I think if you set a schedule and that works for you, then you got to follow it and stick to it. And there's going to be times where you got to work late, and then you just have to communicate that with your family, let them know like what you need, and then they also need to be able to tell you what they need. I think that's some of the best advice that I have come across and that I've implemented in my family and my business is, be present, be with them when you have that time. It's important. And then when you're in work time, make it work time.
Mhm.
Don't be on your phone. Also, scheduling personal time for yourself. This is important, especially for me. Just making time specifically for yourself, personal time, like working out, doing yoga. If you like to read, garden, cook, whatever that is, you got to give yourself some personal time too. Jean, what do you like to do for your
Well,
downtime?
I do gardening, I cook, I do all that stuff, but I was going to say I agree with you 100% because with especially with the balancing because you know it is so easy to like what you said, my phone chimes. Oh, I got a cookbook order. Oh, I got a message that it's important to keep the engagement going because that's how I'm going to continue to get more followers. And
Yeah,
it's like social media can be a serious time sucker and it is
absolutely.
really hard to balance that. And, like I said, I'm a mother of six. My two youngest are still at home. And trying to find that time, Friday night movie nights, we're going to make some popcorn, we're going to watch a movie, and
Yeah.
I put my phone upside down and that's it. One thing that I do to help me with social media stuff is I schedule all my posts, other than like Facebook lives or Instagram lives or reels. But probably I'd say 80% of my posts are scheduled, and I spend an hour Monday morning scheduling my week posts. And I still want to have some natural engagement, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's a balance, and people have to realize that. But it's so hard in the beginning, right?
It is. It's hard just to find that rhythm and to figure out, how you're gonna balance it all. And you can't do it perfectly.
No,
You
no.
can't. It's never gonna happen. So
I've kind
you just have to find what works, what's the balance, and then you'll know as soon as something comes out of balance, you'll see it.
Yes,
It'll be
yeah,
there in your face, and you'll be like, "Oh, yep, I got to spend more time here, more time doing this thing or the."
yeah. It's kind of crazy because I feel like the things that I love to do, cooking and gardening and writing, those are my real passions, and, organization and entrepreneurship. And I feel really fortunate because I'm getting to like make a living at what I love to do. And sometimes, I got to remember this is still a job, and, getting those boundaries with family too. It's like my kids know, it's like, okay, mom's in her home office and it is. And I did the day job, I've done the remote work. So I feel like
Mhm.
I have that, when I set aside time, this is what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but it takes time. It takes time to be able to manage that and get it effective. But like you said, nothing's perfect. But yeah. And it's like, I have so many listeners, like I said, that are in the same boat as you, in the same boat as me, and as so many other the steps in that process. But I have listeners, again, who are like you, like me, dreaming of their company, becoming successful enough to dump the day job. Tell the listeners what your long-term goals are for Moon Ceramics.
Okay. So my long-term goals, they shift and change. My personal self goals for this year are to spend time on myself, grow as a person and as an artist. I'm really like in this mindset of just learning as much as I can to make running my company easier. So from marketing to, using outside resources to help me with my website. So I'm not spending weeks on weeks trying to build a
Mm-hmm.
website.
Mm-hmm.
Use the resources that you can. And create the other thing too is create more artwork than I am consuming. I recently came across that saying and it just like resonated with me to make more than I'm like spending time consuming. So like just I spend way too much time on my phone looking at other artists, watching
Okay.
other videos, and I really want to this year just make more. And I'm actually going to sit down and figure out, how many orders I had last year. I want to do that. That's kind of been the social media theme this year is everybody's posting how many orders they had, how many countries they shipped to. So I want to find that out for myself and then beat that goal next year.
Okay.
And business goals, I really am changing my whole trajectory this year. I used to do tons and tons of little markets and craft shows and, art shows. And this year I'm really being more selective and I'm going to do, these are specifically for in-person stuff. I'm going to
Okay.
do more fine art shows. Um, and I'm really excited about it. I've actually already applied to two of them. One of them being art on the Grand, I think is
Oh
one.
my gosh. I was going to suggest that. I know the people
Yeah.
that run the Farmington one. I was like, I can put you in
Oh, do
connection
you?
with that. Yeah, I do. So I will send over. Is it I don't want to say her name right now, but we can talk off this
Yeah.
later. But yeah, I can definitely put in a word for you if it's still
Oh,
my
okay.
friend
Yeah.
who's running it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Not
So
what you know,
so shows
Karleigh, it's
like
who you
that, art on
know.
the Grand. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I want to do like art on the Grand, art in Birmingham,
Okay. What
the
about the Ann
Berkeley
Arbor
Art
Art Fair?
Bash is on my list. So the Ann Arbor Art Fair is on my radar. I do have a family wedding that same weekend, so I'm
Okay.
kind of torn if I'm gonna do that one. I've heard
Yeah.
really good things about all like the Milford memories,
Okay.
and yeah, so I'm
North.
gonna do more specific shows like that. And for anybody else that's in the art show circuit, like those shows are more expensive and harder to get into, so they're
Yes.
not guaranteed. But they are like it's just different. They're run different. Like I said, I did some farmers markets last year, and they just weren't a good fit for me, and they weren't a great money maker either. Which in
Yeah.
the end, that's what we're trying to do is support our families and
Yep.
be independent. So if something's not working, that means you got to change and you got to be with the people and where you need to be. If your business is mobile, you
Yeah.
got to, that's kind of where artists are though. You got to go where your customers are. And if they're not at farmers markets, then that means just changing it up.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I've run farmers markets for actually this last year was the first year out of the last right, 18 years I didn't run a farmers market or
Oh, which
more.
one?
I started the Dodge Park Farmers Market. The city had consulted with me to help
Okay.
start and organize that. So I ran that for the first 5 years. I started the Old Winery Farmers Market in downtown Farmington many moons ago. That
Oh,
is no
cool.
longer there. I was a vendor in Farmington. I ran the Dearborn Farmers Market for years. I ran the Wayne Farmers Market for 1 year. Um, Oh my gosh, there's a few others. But yeah, so and I always wanted to include the artisan type products, but a potter or an artist, a photographer, whatever, you can't be there at the same market every week. And what I always told, because I was a vendor, I was a farmer for 15 years, so I've been behind and in front of the table. And I always told my artisan type market vendors, choose, 8 or 10 different markets and be at a market more than once, because generally people are not going to a farmer's market to buy a bowl or a photograph or a cutting board. And so what I always said is, in the beginning of the season, when you're scheduling yourself out, create a flyer that you hand out at every single farmer's market, and so that your people know where you are. So if somebody comes to Dearborn and you're not going to be there next week, but they weren't prepared to spend $75 on an art piece, but they want to get it next week. And a lot of times people do. But if you're going to be in, the Farmington farmers market the following weekend, and they're not too far from that, they might go see you there. So that was one thing that I always, and I suggest to you too, because a farmer's market can, if you're at the right one, be a source of revenue, especially a weekday farmer's market where you're not doing shows and it's not in competition. So if you're not doing anything during the week, and you can set aside 2 days a week to do some farmer's markets, it's and build up a clientele, it's not a bad gig. It's just you got to understand how to organize your time with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for anybody out there that doesn't really know where to start, depending on, what your business is, even if it's a service or if you have a physical product or food, I think farmers markets are a phenomenal resource to use, because you may not sell out that day, but you might make 10 new customers that come back every day or every time you're there,
or get your online presence. People will buy. Oh, okay. Well, you're not gonna be here next week. Well, do you have an Etsy shop, or how can I buy from you online? And it generates leads and potential sales.
Yeah, always have business cards. I've learned that lesson. Man, every time I do a show, I swear I give out at least 100 of them, which it just blows my mind, because business cards are kind of old school, but people really go lean towards them still, and they follow you. And on my business cards, I even have all my QR codes, which people love too. Makes it easier.
Yeah, that's a big thing now.
Yeah, farmers markets are great because they're low cost. A lot of them you don't have to have business insurance to participate in. And they're not necessarily a long-term commitment. Like if you decide you go for a month and it's just not a good fit for you, that's fine. You're not committed to a storefront.
Exactly.
You can move on to something else and try something different. And one of the best things I have learned for doing farmers markets and shows is talking to the people that are there all the time. Talk to the other vendors, talk to the other artists, and say, have you done this show before? Have you done this market before? How has it been for you? And if they have, I always ask them, how do you compare today from last time? And you get so much information that way that's just so valuable, because there's no resources to go online and say, oh yeah, the Farmington Farmers Market is the best, because nobody puts that out there. And it's also going to be subjective to your business and, what you're selling. But sometimes you just got to talk to people and you got to try it out for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But Karleigh, you're kind of got your feet wet now in your business. What advice for others wanting to start a business? What advice would you have for some newbies out there?
You just got to do it. I know it sounds so blunt, but you got to start it. You got to do it. And if you're still working your day job, that's fine. If you're financially not able to jump ship and start from scratch, then you got to figure that out, set out a timeline, make a goal in 6 months or a year. I'm hoping to be working for myself, and, have realistic expectations. And if you set those goals, that really helps you then understand what you're able to achieve too, and learning that too, because I think a lot of us are like, maybe it was just me, but I was like, man, I hope I make in my first year, I make more than I made at my old job, which that did not happen. And well, especially pottery, very expensive. I was like totally in the negative the first 2 years, and I
Yeah.
still might be this year. And that was something I didn't know. Like I didn't know going forward, what it takes to actually, buy all your supplies and all the other costs that come with it. And also keeping track of everything too is super important. You got
Yes.
to for running your own company, you keep track of everything you've ever bought for your company for your taxes, because in the end that, helps you.
Oh yeah, you need those write-offs.
Absolutely, you do. And so setting goals for yourself. And for me, I even started doing this like daily goals or my to-do list,
Hmm.
what I want to get done in the week. So if I have like 10 orders, can I get them all done in 1 week? And then monthly goals. Like I know this month I want to finish applying to all the different, art shows I want to participate in. Because a lot of them,
Yeah, there's
they're,
deadlines.
yeah, their deadlines are this month or last
Yeah.
month. So
Yep.
and then setting yearly goals and even like further out goals, 3 years, 5 years from now,
Yep.
where do you want to be? And that can change too. Those can change and flow. But once you have that, set in your mind of what you want to do, that really helps get you started. And networking is super important. And then you can also use all the free resources available to you from the library or the county that you lived in. I actually took a couple business classes through Oakland County at their I think it was
Re-
their main building.
Resource Center, I think it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Really great.
Yeah, and they can show you how to set up an LLC and, how to start your business and get your tax ID and, help you even pick a business name. And there's people even in my class that really didn't know what they wanted to do. They just wanted to start their own business. So if you're in that boat too, you want to work for yourself. And you just have realistic expectations of what you can achieve in a year. And that really helps, set the tone for what you want to do and, scheduling it out and figuring out what you're going to do this year.
Yeah, yeah, and I've said I really love pottery and I really am sincere about it. And you've talked about working with your daughter and
Yeah.
those personal goals and whatnot. I want to just throw in there, my two oldest sons, they created these beautiful bowls in their pottery class in high school. And I was so happy when they gifted them to me for Christmas those years. And I still have them on display in my home. One is a braided basket and the other is a chips and salsa bowl, and I just adore them. And I know, you talk about, working with your daughter and how she, works by your side and you can take her to stuff. My kids grew up at the farmer's market. And let me tell you, Karleigh, the example you're setting for her, showing her the entrepreneurship, the stamina that it takes to get that ball rolling. You are really creating an environment for her that is going to teach her to be strong and to be able to get through, whether it's thick or thin. And we've talked about a few other things and different shows, but I do want, again, we met at the Goldner Walsh Garden and Home, and you've talked about doing some farmers markets, but what other types of markets and other events do you have scheduled? I know you just mentioned a little bit, but right now, do you have any set in stone that you're going to be able to be at, that people can come and see you?
So as of now, I do not. So I applied to a couple of them in December because that's when their deadlines are, which is wild because some of them are like next fall.
Uh-huh.
But you have to really pre-plan. And that's something that I kind of missed the boat on last year.
Okay.
I was way too late and applying to some of the bigger shows that I wanted to be in, and the deadlines had already passed. So that was a goal that I was like, this year, I'm going to get it all done early and really figure out my schedule. And so as of now, I don't have any that I've officially been accepted into.
Okay.
But I'm hoping, I think by March I'll know. And then once that comes out, I'll put my lineup out of where I'm gonna
Okay.
be. And yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait. One I really want to do this year too is Art in the Park in Plymouth.
Oh, yes, I was going to mention that one too. That's a really good one. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
really
that
want to
person,
go.
but
It's a pricey one. I think it's about $600 a spot, but
yeah.
every other artist I've talked to, they say it's well worth it. Well
Yeah.
worth it. So
Well, the bottom line's got to add up, right?
yeah, yeah. And
At
so
some
when you're
point.
when you're
Well,
preparing for a show like that too, you really got to plan months in advance because you have to have enough stock, artwork, and
yep.
whatever else you're gonna sell, like for that 3-day event, and hope you
It's
have
a
it.
big deal. Yeah. And
Yeah, it's
when
like
you're
you
going to
kind of
do,
want to you want to sell out, but you also want to make sure you have enough for the
For
3-day
the
event
next one,
too.
yeah.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah,
kind of pre-plan. And it's like, where do you start? How do you know your inventory, especially if it's the first time you've ever done that? But
yeah, yeah.
I loved your products, and I could have easily bought one of everything on your table when I met you at Goldner Walsh. But excuse me, they make wonderful personal buys or a great gift for that hard to buy for a family member, a friend. And we all know we have those, right?
Yeah.
But you also have some wonderful items for gardeners, which I loved. And your ceramic plant namestakes are so cute. I bought 2 of them and I love them. I would have loved to get all of them. And I did see on your website that you can buy the whole set. So that is on my wish list for this summer. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell a couple of my kids, hey, go in on these for my birthday. But that's not it, Karleigh. I also saw that you do some personal work too. But tell my listeners a little bit about your online store and your custom work.
Sure, yeah. So I make the garden markers were a fun little thing that I kind of started, and I really made them for myself. I'm a huge gardener, and I
Well,
also
I'm glad
love
you
starting.
sold them.
Yeah, I started my own seeds and everything, and it all started because I was sick of making them. I was stamping the names of the plants for myself, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore like this. So I actually had my spouse help design and make my own custom stamps for all of my herb markers.
How
So it's a
cool.
custom font, custom size, all of that. So I made 38 different herbs names, and then that's what I use to stamp my markers. And they're great because they're ceramic, they last forever. So those are on my website. And I currently am selling solely on Etsy, and my website is under construction, like a lot of people's, just trying
Oh,
to figure
yes.
that all out and building a website and getting it working. And anyway, Etsy has been a great start. Totally recommend it for anybody that is just starting and has like handmade items they want to sell. I do like Etsy. It has a lot of pros and cons, but in the end they bring you customers, and that's
Hmm.
what you need. So it's a great place to start. Like any kind of income, you need to know that that can't be your only source of income, and I've learned that too. You kind of have to have your eggs in multiple baskets. Not
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So my goal is to finish, setting up my website this year, and I also gonna amp up my pottery tools that I make. I make my own tools and stamps and all that
Wow.
jazz. I do custom 3D printed pottery tools and stamps, and that also led into doing custom pottery. So I started making a couple, custom mugs and all that.
Uh-huh. I saw the
Um,
one for Hollyhock Farms on your website, and that was the
yeah,
one I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy cool.
yeah, that was a really fun project to do. It was for a friend of mine that I met through the Oakland County Farmers Market,
Okay.
and
I
she
was just
ordered,
there.
yeah, she ordered 4 of them for her husband. And it was their first Father's Day together with their
Oh,
new baby. So
well,
it was a really fun project to do, and I custom made the logo of their farm, which you can
wow.
see on my Instagram if anybody's interested in looking at it.
Yeah.
But it was just a custom medallion that I put on mugs for them. She picked the colors and all that, and it was fun. It was almost like a beer stein kind of look.
Yeah, it was super cute, cool. And that's kind of where I want to let my listeners know now. Dragonfly friends, Mother's and Father's Day is right around the corner, and one of Moon Ceramics handcrafted items or a custom piece would make a perfect gift. But Karleigh, I think you and I could sit here and just talk a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with all of my listeners. And thank you, Dragonfly listeners, for listening and being here. And I genuinely hope Karleigh's story has inspired you. So thank you, Karleigh.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I hope it does touch somebody, and then if any, I'm really happy to be here. It was so fun.
Oh, well, I had a great time too. And again, I really hope somebody listening today you're listening and you hear Karleigh's story and it's giving you that glimpse of hope. Are you thinking about starting a new business and following a dream or passion, but you just don't know where to start? If you have a foot on both sides of the fence and you're just not sure if you should take that leap of faith, well, today might be just the nudge you need. And if you happen to be living in or around Southeast Michigan area, please stop by and check out my podcast on March 1st with Aisha Maxwell of Access. You can find the link at my blog as well. Access provides free mentoring and coaching along with several other services. And with that being said, I hope you will all listen. But now, to learn more about Moon Ceramics, you can go to my blog at For Dragonflies and Me or visit moonmoonceramics.com. Please follow me here and at my blog at fordragonfliesandme.com. And if you haven't visited me on Facebook, please like and follow me there for daily inspirations, recipes, and gorgeous photos. Until next time, friends, happy day.